Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Jake Fletcher Show. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is very, very important. It's another one that oftentimes people think is kind of cliche, but I remind you that these cliche things are cliche for a reason, because they are extremely important and they often get overlooked because they are so cliche, as some people say. But the reality is, most people don't actually even understand the full scope of the topic, all right? So today, the title of the video is "You Gotta Flop to Make It to the Top," or something like that. That's what I'm thinking that the title will be. So what does that mean? Why do you have to flop to make it to the top? Basically, you need to fail in order to succeed, right? So I want to read you guys a quote real quick. It says, "It is impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default." That's a quote from J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. And this is just one of the successful celebrity type people who failed over and over and over and over again until they finally were successful, right? So Colonel Sanders is another one. He was 62 when he decided to start KFC. Over 1,000 different restaurants turned him down until one person said yes. He had like $100 Social Security check and he was driving around the country trying to find somebody to pick up KFC. So over 1,000 people turned him down, and now KFC is KFC, right? Walt Disney is another one. He was fired from his first job at a newspaper because the editor thought that he didn't have any he wasn't creative and didn't have any original ideas. So we'll see how that turned out, right? Oprah is another one. She was fired from her first job as a reporter or an anchor or something, and was told that she had no place on television. Go figure, right? Thomas Edison is another one. He was told that one of his teachers said something along the lines of that he was not smart enough to succeed or something like that. Dude went on to create the light bulb, the phonograph, and had over 1,000 different patents to his name. Bill Gates is another one. Bill Gates had a company before Microsoft that they were trying to do something along the lines of analyzing traffic data, and then the machine that they built, when they went to go show it to the traffic city employee that they were meeting with, the machine failed or it broke. And then, of course, he went on and created Microsoft. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, right? So these are examples, they're extreme examples to show you the overall point that you may get told by others that you fail, or that you're no good, or that you can't do something or another, but only until you decide to stop trying does that become true, all right? And I take it further, because my belief is that it is almost impossible to succeed and almost impossible to be a successful person without failing repeatedly over and over and over in your life, okay? Now, some people will say, oh, well, what about the Kardashian that's a self-made billionaire? She basically, as soon as she, was the youngest self-made billionaire of all time as soon as she started her company. Okay, well, that's an extreme example. Most people aren't going to be a Kardashian, right? Most people are more in the line of regular people, right? And they become great people because they choose to be persistent. They choose to continue to believe in themselves. And those are the two most important things in this topic. You have to be persistent. You cannot stop. If you really, really know that you can be successful with what you're doing, then you can't stop, right? Unless things change and you decide you no longer want to do it, right? Then that's fine. That's another thing altogether. But if you really are convicted that you want to do something and you know that you can be successful, then you can't stop doing it. You have to do it every day like it's a full-time job and then some, right? So put in full-time job time and then some, right? So every day you work your however many hours it is that you can put in on that, and then some, right? So whether it's you work, let's say you work a 9 to 5, you come home, you eat 5 to 6, and then from 6 to 9, you work on your other side project that's gonna one day become your career or your business idea or whatever it is, right? So you got 3 hours a day in there plus weekends, right? Well, how about instead of 6 to 9, you do 6 to 11 or 6 to 10, right? Even just 6 to 10 is 1 hour less, right? But that's an extra hour every single day. That's 365 extra hours a year, okay? That's a lot of hours if you know what you're doing, all right? So definitely make sure that you're putting in as much time as possible into that thing. You're being persistent, you're doing it every single day, and you're even doing even more than you think that you're able to do each day, right? Let's say, 6 to 9, when 9 o'clock comes, let me do this a little bit longer, right? Push it every single day, push it, right? One of my friends, he used to always say, Jimi Hendrix didn't get good at playing guitar once a week, right? So in other words, he wouldn't just pick up the guitar and practice once a week. He practiced every single day, all day, every day, right? If you want to be great, if you want to be successful, you have to be willing to put in that type of time into what you do, straight up, right? And the other component, which is equally as important, is believing in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. Big surprise, right? So, these two aspects, if you can have these two aspects of being consistent and persistent and believing in yourself, not only have you now opened up the door to your idea or your dream of whatever it is that you want to do becoming reality, but other people around you are going to pick up on that as well, because guess what? That's not the mentality of most people. Most people are just kind of coasting and doing what they need to do to survive, right? People who go above and beyond, people who are undaunted by failure, other people notice that and they look up to that. They might not say it, they might not bring it up, but they do. People look up to that, and even if they don't consciously think about it, they're subconsciously recognizing that it's happening, and guess what? It's probably not something that they do, and so it seems foreign to them, and it seems either crazy or it seems admirable. Depends on the type of person, okay? Now, another reason that you need to flop to get on top is because every time you flop, you learn lessons, right? So this is another kind of cliche thing about this that gets overlooked. People say, learn from your mistakes, right? Learn from your mistakes, learn from your mistakes. Well, what did you learn from your last mistake? I'll wait, right? We don't tend to actively take a look at our mistakes and say to ourselves, where could I have gone better? What could I have done differently? How could I have done this in a way that would have gotten me better results, right? So what you want to do is you want to get into the habit of every time that you quote unquote fail or something doesn't work out, what you want to do is, whether it's once a week or right after something happens, whatever works for you that's feasible but that is consistent, you want to make sure that you have a moment where you reflect on what just happened, where you think about, okay, what went wrong, what went right, what can I learn from this scenario, okay? Now, it seems super simple, right? But it's a hard thing to do because you have to be honest with yourself, right? Which means you have to be willing to accept responsibility for the things that you did right and the things that you did wrong, okay? Now, that's really tough. That's a tall order for most people, accepting responsibility. Most people don't want to accept responsibility for shit, right? So this is a very tough thing to do, to be honest with yourself and accept responsibility. The second component of it that's tough is you got to actually remember to do it. It doesn't help if you think about it a month later because it's not fresh in your mind anymore. You got to do it while it's fresh. Otherwise, you won't get as many powerful nuggets of wisdom and things. You just won't have as much of a clear recollection anymore about it. So highly recommend making sure that you either once a week have a planning session for yourself, or make sure that, let's say you're going up for a big contract, a big deal, and you didn't get it. Right after that, take some time to think about what you could have done differently, alter your strategies, and plan and prepare for the next time, right? So that's it, really. That's what it comes down to. Most successful people are successful because they beat out the people who weren't willing to do the tough work that I've talked about so far, all right? Now, another component of this flopping to get on top and learning from our mistakes and failing to be successful is that we need to be realistic about what we're capable of, and we need to make sure to set not only realistic goals. They can be fantastic goals, but still within the realm of possibility. It could be wild, fanciful ideas that you want to do, but something that's still physically possible, shall we say, right? So we need to make sure that we are realistic with ourselves and our goals. And also, too, we need to make sure not to be too hard on ourselves, all right? So this is something that I feel like a lot of people who have the ability to be successful, this is where they slip up, right? Because successful people tend to have a mindset of kind of being very super critical of themselves, because that's how you get better results sometimes. I do it too, where I beat myself up over the littlest details after something happens, and I have to remember, I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, right? But we have to learn to accept it and move on from those mistakes, take those lessons, learn from them, and do better next time. If you have a hard time like letting go of those mistakes, then you're going to be living in the past, and you're going to kind of fall into that mentality of what if or what could have been, right? Don't be too worried about what could have been after it's happened, right? Like we said, take the lessons and learn and keep going, right? And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. That's another thing that I feel like is kind of overlooked, is that people get an idea about what it is that they want or what they want to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, they take it as, I can't believe I'm the worst, I did this terrible, or they think, that was unfair, I was treated wrong, or whatever it might be. But there's all these rationalizations for why it didn't happen. Well, this is the only rationalization that you're ever gonna need right here, right now. If it didn't happen, it wasn't meant to be, wasn't for you, right? So, it's so important to just keep that context in mind about, not only that what's meant to be for you will be, but also, to really just figure out that line of where you're analyzing and being critical of yourself, but you're not being too harsh on yourself. You don't want it to get to negative, repetitive thoughts. You don't want it to get to where you're so crippled by the fact that you made X, Y, and Z mistake that you're scared to try again, okay? And that's the next part of this that I wanted to talk about, is fear, okay? I can tell you for sure, as somebody who has done a lot of door knocking in my real estate career, up until COVID started, that the first few times that I went and door knocked, I was pretty scared, right? In terms of, I had a lot of anxiety. I was worried, what if someone curses me out, and I come back to, I don't know where I heard this, but there's some kind of, it's not really a saying, it's more just like a self-check, where it's like, okay, think about what's the worst that could happen. Are you gonna die? And if the answer is no, then whatever could follow from that is at least not worse than dying, right? So you know you're not going to die, right, by knocking on that door, or by trying to get that raise at work, or whatever it is that you're gunning for, right? Trying to start a business. You're not going to die from it, right? So right away, a lot of the fear immediately melts away. Once you kind of put it into that context, at least for me personally, right? And another thing I can tell you is that the more I have failed in my life, the less it has made me fearful of the prospect of failing again. Okay, so the more that you get rejected, the more that you fail at something, the more you realize that each time you get a no, or each time you fail, or each time you mess something up, you're that much closer to getting it right. You're that much closer to the yes. You're that much closer to the breakthrough. Okay, so that's why I say you have to fail to succeed. All right, even the Kardashian, I'm sure, failed at things before she was dubbed the youngest billionaire or whatever it is, right? Guaranteed that she probably failed at some things. You have to fail to be successful. It is absolutely a prerequisite of success, okay? Now, that fear component is, in my opinion, fear is one of the biggest motivators of human action, okay? Now, some people will disagree with me on this, and there's varying opinions, but in my opinion, fear is absolutely at the bedrock of most of the situations that people find themselves in, where they won't do something, or they are feeling like they won't succeed, or they're listening to other people who said, oh, you're no good at this, or you're no good at that. It's because of fear. Straight up, it's because of fear. Fear of what? That's not for me to decide, but in my opinion, that fear is absolutely one of the biggest motivators of all human action, right? So, but here's the twist. You can put a positive spin on that fear, and instead of it being, let's use the raise at your job as an example again. Instead of saying, oh, I'm afraid that they're gonna say no, I'm not afraid that my boss is gonna criticize me or ridicule me for even asking. Well, first of all, are you gonna die? Answer is no. Second of all, here's the positive spin, right? I'm no longer afraid that my boss is going to potentially say no or criticize me or ridicule me. Now, instead, I'm afraid that when I am in my older years, that I will look back and regret the fact that I wasn't able to create a better life for myself because I didn't have extra financial capacity to do the things that I wanted to do that would have been allowed to me or would have been accessible to me through getting that raise. I'm afraid that I won't be able to provide the life for my family that I would have otherwise been able to if I didn't get that raise, right? So you see where I'm going with this. You can set up all these contingencies that are, well, hey, if I don't do this, or if I'm too afraid to do this, then all these other negative things are gonna happen, right? What's worse? You're in your final moments thinking, oh, damn, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had done that. I wish I hadn't been too afraid. Or the here and now momentary fear that, oh, your boss might get upset. You tell me, right? One to me is definitely worse. I would much rather a boss get upset than to have any any type of regrets on my deathbed, okay? So now, last thing that I want to talk about is aptitude, okay? Aptitude basically means it is your inherent ability to learn how to do something, or your inherent ability to be able to do something. So it doesn't mean that you're able to do something right now, or that you have the capacity to do it right now. It's simply that you have the capacity to learn how to do it, or to work your way to doing something, right? So the aptitude factor is very important, right? Because, and this goes back to kind of being realistic with ourselves. I'm not gonna set a goal for myself that I'm going to be a gold medalist figure skater. Why? Because last time I was on skates, I slipped and almost cracked my head open. I have, beside the fact that I have no natural ability for skating on ice, I don't like to be cold. It's not something that I even want to achieve, right? And it's not something that motivates me and makes me feel like, hell yeah, I want to get up in the morning and do this all day, right? So the aptitude factor is super important, because we need to be realistic about what our goals are, what we have the ability to learn how to do, right? And make sure that we're also not selling ourselves short on that, right? Make sure you're not saying, oh, well, I don't know how to do it now, so I don't think I could learn. No, give yourself a lot more credit than that. There's a lot that you can learn, right? Aptitude limitations usually only come in the form of physical limitations, or like, I'm not gonna be a champion women's volleyball player because I'm a dude, right? So physical limitations or other limitations that make something literally impossible, right? And I don't mean impossible to others. I mean actually literally impossible. Like, I'm not gonna set a goal that I'm gonna grow wings and fly to the moon. Not gonna happen, right? But I could set a goal that by the time I'm 50 years old, I have enough money to pay SpaceX to take me to the moon, right? Or something like that, right? So we need to make sure that our goals are within the scope of reality, but we also need to make sure that we are, not selling ourselves short, and that we realize, hey, I have the aptitude to do this. I have the ability to learn how to do this, right? How to start this business, how to become the best realtor in Miami or the world, how to do whatever it is that you're seeking to do, starting a business or whatever accolade that it is that you're looking for, top salesman or woman, so realize that you do have the aptitude to do it. And once you realize, hey, I got the aptitude, I can technically do this, then your next step forward becomes very clear, which is now all you got to do, very simple, is put in the work, right? Put in the work, put in the time, that dedication, persistence, and believe in yourself, okay? Now, with all of those things in line, guess what? You're still gonna fail, okay? But now, armed with the new knowledge that you have of failure, you're going to take a moment after that failure in your weekly self-check-in or right after it happens, and you're going to analyze the situation and see what you could have done better and what you maybe could have done differently to get better results, right? So again, this is one of those topics that I feel like a lot of people gloss over, and they just say, oh, learn from your mistakes. But nobody ever says why. Nobody ever says how. Nobody ever talks about, well, what if you don't, right? And I'm here to tell you that, the weekly check-in, or making sure you check in with yourself right after your failures, is how you do it. Your what if you don't is that, well, guess what? If you don't learn from those mistakes, then you're probably not going to get better, and you're decreasing your chances of success, right? And the why is obvious, of course, that if you learn from your mistakes, if you fail over and over and over again, and you're always learning from those mistakes, and you're always taking it up a notch, then eventually you might not get where you're originally intending to go, but you are definitely going to get to where you need to go, right? This is a lesson that I have learned several times in my life. And things throughout time, your mindset about what it is that you're achieving will also change, right? Your goals now are going to be different than they are in 10 years, okay? So unless it's a lifelong mission that you've always had, you have to also be willing to be flexible with your goals, and flexible with the fact that you maybe are barking up the wrong tree, to borrow a figure of speech, right? Maybe maybe what you were originally intending to do isn't what was meant for you, right? Maybe you're meant to do this other thing that's kind of somewhat related, but that you're going to be a lot better at, or you have a much better path to success, right? Now, this is not to say that, oh, if you fail, it's not for you. No, these are two separate things, right? On one hand, you have giving up because you failed. On the other hand, you have relentlessly failing over and over and over again until you learn enough that you are now better informed to make a better decision for yourself that will lead you down a better path. Okay, and that's what you want. That's what I want for you guys, and that's what I want for everyone. I want you all to be on the best possible path that you can be on, because remember, it is not about the destination, it's about the journey. Okay, so you need to take all these failures in stride, learn to laugh, don't be afraid to fail, embrace your failures. Laugh in the face of failure where others would be scared. Analyze what your aptitude is, what you're naturally good at and naturally not good at. Learn from those mistakes. Be ritualistic about your time that you put in to learn from those mistakes. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to believe in yourself and you have to be persistent. Okay? And persistence is consistency plus action, okay? It's not enough to just mentally be consistent. You have to be actively consistent as well. You have to get these dirty, get your hands dirty, right? Figuratively or literally, potentially, but you have to put in that work, right? So that's it for this one, guys. Got a flop to get on top. Hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure, if you have not already, follow my YouTube channel. If you're listening on YouTube, the button is right down somewhere, and hit the bell to get notified whenever I release new videos. Follow me on whatever podcasting platform you might be listening to, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, etc. Follow me on Instagram at jake.miami, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Sell smart, buy bold. Peace.